Hey, welcome to D-Lab. Guess what I'm working on today? A tube guitar amp. Something I normally don't do. But a guy bought this thing on eBay and it was dead. So he really got it for a great price, okay? He sent it to me expecting the worst. Thought I'd be like, hey, you need a new power transformer for $100, right? Nope. Turned out to be a minor issue. With a little bit of rewiring, this MojoTone Champ is good to go. Let's give the eBay Champ an inspection. I don't know if this is one of those Mojo kits. I believe it is. Chrome chassis with the silk screening. Got classic tone power and output transformer. I like that. On the back, got those porcelain sockets for your rectifier and your 6V6, and a Michael X for the 12AX7. Alright, bottom side of the Champ. We'll give her a good look over. First thing you'll notice is the power cord is gone. I actually removed that because when the amp arrived here, the owner told me it was dead. So I buzzed out the cord immediately because it looked substandard, and yes, the cord was open, okay? So I'm sure that the power transformer is fine. Here, this is pretty interesting. This is the center tap for the high voltage, which should be going to ground, and then your other two leads go to your rectifier tube, right? Well, this was not connected. It was as you see it, just curled up and tied off. So this amp probably never had high voltage, if it ever turned on at all. Alright, so the eyelet board, you can see the filter caps over there. It's not a bad job. It's not the best of jobs, but it probably will operate once I get power applied. The 12AX7, it's got quite a mess of wiring down here. And one thing I noticed, you see this lead? This is actually the spare output lead for your speaker. So he's got the 4-ohm hooked up, and I believe this is the 8 that's not used, but it's flopping around in here, and guess what can happen? You get feedback between that and your 12AX7. So we're going to have to lace this differently and get it away from that preamp tube. Alright, I'm going to get a power cord on this thing. Let's see if it'll power up. Alright, so I'm getting ready to put the power cord on, and I wanted to make sure that I had a good ground connection. So I saw this lead and I was like, well, where do you go? Well, it goes down here to a crimp-on terminal on one of the lugs of the power transformer, and look, she moves back and forth. So that's obviously a lousy ground. This lead is the center tap of your filament circuit for the power transformer, and also there's a black lead there, and it comes over here, and that's actually the lousy ground for the power filter caps. So that's a real problem. I'm obviously not going to use a clip-on connector to a stud of the power transformer. What I'm going to do is take a terminal board, I'm going to mount it over here on the chassis and solder that tab direct. I'm going to bring the power cord ground there and this ground there. Good secure connection. We'll put in a separate ground point for the filter caps. Alright, there's our terminal board set. I ground away the chrome so I can get a good connection to that chassis. And of course, to solder that, it's going to take an extreme amount of heat, right? So what do we use when we need to solder those kind of connections? You guessed it. And here he comes.
Good evening. Sit back and relax. Light up an old ghoul. A lot of people wonder where
Snozeramus.
Well, they come from all over. They have a lot of ghouls come from Portugal.
And you're probably wondering, where do I get that crazy music? Well, it's this guy right here. The Ghoul. I used to watch him when I was a kid growing up. And this is his kind of best of CD. It's called Turn Blue. And the track you just heard is right there by Goulardi. So I removed the fuse holder and the lamp holder to install this ground lug. So that provides a nice direct ground for the filter caps. Alright, let's get back together. We're close to firing it up. Okay, the input power is hooked back up. We got proper grounding. I put in some tubes just for testing. Let's see what happens when we power it up on my Variac. Alright, you're seeing this when I see it, okay? This is not staged. I have not powered it up ahead of time. We've got the amp on, okay? Volume's all the way down. I'm monitoring the high voltage on my B&K meter. Dummy load installed. I'll bring up the voltage nice and slow. Watch my current on the old Variac Aramis. High voltage. Good sign. We're at like 60 volts input. There's 80. Got a dial light. There's 100 volts input. We'll just leave it right there. I'm going to watch my current. Ooh, something squealing. Okay. Anyway, it powers up, but we got a squealer. Alright, so I told you that these leads of the output transformer being that close to the preamp tube's a problem. We also have a little feedback line here with a very crummy connection. I'm going to just cut that off. Let's reapply power. See if the squeal goes away. Could just be a feedback issue, like improper phasing on the output transformer. Okay, back to 100 volts. Okay, she's powered up. No squeals. Okay, so it is feedback. Alright, now I'm going to hook up an audio generator and a scope. And let's see if this thing will even pass a signal. Wouldn't that be cool? Alright, I've got the audio generator hooked up now to the amp with a dummy load. 100 volts input off the Variac. Oscillating television hooked up. Let's kick it on and then I'll tell you who I'm listening to. This is Wolfsheim. It's German electronic music. I'll tell you what, guys, if you're into this stuff at all, this is the CD to get, Casting Shadows. I love it. I've been listening to it over and over today. Alright, we're powered, and I am actually seeing some output on my scope. Look at there. Oh yeah. Clean. She's a-working. So pretty much the input power was the main issue with the amp, but I am going to rewire this input, clean things up, get rid of antennas. But look at there. Some simple maintenance, and this little champ is up and running. So I'm getting ready to rewire the preamp section. So I want to clean up the wiring on the 12AX7. The wires coming off these input jacks is kind of ratty. But when I was in here looking at these input jacks, I thought, uh-oh, these are not wired correctly. Alright, let me show you what's going on. So I've put a plug in here simulating your guitar, plugged in, okay? So the 12AX7, when you go to the center terminal to ground, should be seeing approximately 1 megohm. That's what makes the grid of the 12AX7 happy. Look what I have over here. Let me scale down. I got about 120 k ohms. Okay. The reason is whoever wired these jacks, each jack has 1 meg resistor, and then they go down to the 268K resistors, and each of the jacks has the ground switching. Okay, so what's happening is I'm coming in through this 168K back through the other 68K to the second jack, and it's shorting it to ground. So if I push on the second jack, you see my resistance? Not 1 up, to about a 1/2 meg. That's because each of these jacks has a 1 meg resistor on them, right? So what's happening is it's loading down the input signal since these are wired incorrectly. So I'm going to restore those input jacks to the wiring that Fender did, and this amp should have a lot more gain. And here's a close-up of those input jacks. You can see that they're both the switched style. They both have 1 meg resistors. Signals go down to these two 68Ks. They junction at this point. That feeds the 12AX7. So you can see the loop in here, through there, back there, shorted to ground. Kills your signal. So this is how the input jacks should be wired on your Champ. Okay, only this jack, which is input 1, has the 1 meg resistor. The two jacks join at this point, and then the wires go down to the 68K resistors. You can see this on Fender's old layout documents, okay? I've also cleaned up the wiring on the 12AX7. So I'm going to give this thing another test, check the noise floor of the amp. Alright, so the amp is powered up. I'm monitoring across the dummy load with my scope. I have no signal applied. Just going to grab the volume and take a look at the scope. We're just looking at the noise level. I'm at 50 millivolts per division. There is full volume. And there is no volume. There's 20 millivolts per division. Extremely quiet. Got a little bit of a little sine wave going on down here. It's kind of interesting. But either way, you would not hear that on your speaker. So she's pretty clean. I'm going to get a signal applied to it again. Check over the wiring, but the Champ is pretty much ready. Alright, let's review everything I did to the Champ to get it operational again. First off, I put a new AC cord on. The cord that came with it was open, making you believe that the main power transformer was bad. It wasn't, and that's why this guy got such a great deal on this through eBay, right? Also added this terminal board, okay? This terminal board serves two purposes. It gives me a place for the AC cord lines to land rather than splicing things, and it gives me a ground point for the center tap of the high voltage and 6-volt windings, okay? So I did make sure to solder that ground direct to the chassis. So we got great ground integrity. Also rewired all the tube sockets, routed things neatly, and color coded, okay? The input jacks were wired incorrectly, so I installed two new switchcraft jacks, and these are wired per the Fender Champ diagram. Also took care of grounding issues on the eyelet board. Then if we swing up here, you're going to see a little switch. And the reason that is there is it provides 4 or 8 ohm speaker connection to that 1/4 inch jack. The output transformer in this amp is a classic tone ultra linear type, even though he didn't use the tap, and it has outputs for 4 and 8 ohm, so you might as well take advantage of that, okay? Oh, and by the way, this TF103 transformer has been discontinued, so this guy has a really nice transformer on this Champ versus what they came with stock.
This is Jim's eBay Champ. Apparently it was quite a clusterama in the wiring, and Terry straightened everything out. This is a cool sounding little amp.
test, right?
That was an acid test.